I have a question.
It's my sister.
Hey, sister.
What's up? What's up?
I'm really actually bothered by this whole tension point. I really feel like it is a massive tension point, that it was Jesus' human nature that did the suffering and unaliving, right? That was him. It wasn't his divine nature. And people say, well, it was the divine nature that acted, and it was the who of the human Jesus that did the suffering and dying. You know, hypostatic.
What?
Yeah. Wait, how could
the problem of the
can I finish the thought? Let me just finish
yeah.
The problem I have with that is the divine nature of Jesus didn't send himself. It was the Father who sent his son.
I got
Do you see the problem?
Yeah, I got totally lost in that line because you got a bunch of people explaining things in a bunch of different ways, and they can't even figure it out themselves, and they're all Trinitarian Christians. So.
But this specific point I didn't understand, because they try to say, well, hypostatic union, it was the divine nature that acted, so that the human nature is the one that suffered and unalived. But it wasn't the divine nature of the second person that sent him. It was the Father who sent him. But the Father's the one that acted and sent him.
But there are no parts or passions, Elle.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Wait, how does the divine essence act? If the divine essence acts, that means it's experiencing change and experiencing material.
Right.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
So the divine essence can't act upon the human nature because it can't. It's immaterial and it doesn't experience that.
Right. It makes no sense.
It's the great mystery. That you have to be a Trinitarian in order to believe.
They can just go to the escape hatch. Mystery. Incomprehensible mystery. I'm sorry, but it doesn't make sense. And if you can't explain that.
It's also not classical theism, which I'm so tired of people trying to argue and like make it fit into classical theism. It's not.
There are so many issues. There's too many problems. There's too many holes to poke into it. Yeah, like just explain it. I have yet in over 30 years, I've yet to have a single person explain it to where it actually makes sense. And I don't understand how people believe it and like hinge their entire faith or hang their entire faith upon it. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
My brain can't.
You can't be saved unless you accept the mystery of it, all.
Back to, well, it is because it is. Seriously, that's what it feels like it circles back to. I never get an answer. It just is what it is. That's not satisfying.
There's all sorts of reasons for anything you can invent. I don't know. That's what I'm like. I think philosophy is useful to an extent, but it's not useful to decide what God is, because you can go so many different directions and they all sound fine. But like, none of them are true. How do you verify any of that?
Right.
It's just,
how can they say that God the Son atoned when the God part, the divine nature, didn't suffer, but the human nature did?
Yeah, it's impassable.
It goes back to, well, it is what it is.
Well, how would somebody explain that being a separate part but not a separate part? Or passion?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know like a good answer to that. So I don't want to like misrepresent them.
Right, I don't either. But yeah, I think
I'm curious what like the best answer to that is.
Well, that's the thing I've been trying to say.
I don't know.
I've yet to have a single person in over 30 years answer this. You would think I'd have an answer by now. No one's been able to explain it.
I just got my book, my Introduction to Metaphysics, and let's see if it'll help me to understand it at all.
Yeah, let me know if that's a good book, because I think I hadn't had any kind of issue with that in real life until I came on TikTok. And apparently that's very important to talk about on TikTok. But in real life, nobody freaking cares.
It wasn't a year ago.
Yeah, well, true. We would actually talk, about the gospel.
Yeah, we used to talk about the gospel.
Funny. Well, even the philosophers would disagree with like the hypostatic.
Exactly.
Like they don't understand like what the argument is, because it requires so many presuppositions in order to go and build that framework and foundation.
Presupposition upon presupposition. Yeah. And even then, the early church fathers didn't agree on that either.
I think Latter-day Courage has the best explanation of metaphysics, and it's literally just mental gymnastics to try to prove what you already conceded to be right. Like, it's literally just a way to be like, oh, well, actually, my metaphysics says that God can be inside and outside of time at the same time. It's literally just like, it's like when you're playing superheroes with your brother and you make up powers on the spot. And you're like, oh, well, my superhero can't eat lasers. So
yeah, I was going to say, I just thought you with the laser. Well, I have a laser shield. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like you just made that up.
That's so true.
I didn't make it up. I knew it the whole time. I just didn't tell you until it needed to be told.
Exactly.
Is the apostate heretic. Hello, pending.
Hello. No, listen. Elio said I never come up when he's on, so I had to.
Oh, it's a
Oh,
historical
I
moment.
guess we are still.
Even though he never comes on mine, I'm on
Yes,
live
that's
for 8 hours a
I
day.
know. I know.
No,
That was
no,
gonna-
so should-
that was the
Never
irony.
happens
I know
to- yeah,
I'm
he's-
aware of the irony.
So anyway,
that.
someone explained to me how
I try to join every once in a while. I do like your lives a lot of the time, Alex. So.
Yeah,
Been
Elios
up a
is here,
couple
so he
times.
can explain to you, El.
I don't know. I don't have that answer. I haven't looked into that. Frankly, don't really care. I simply don't care. So
I just have a
I don't
hard
know. I
time
haven't looked into it.
with things that don't
Yeah.
logically make sense to me. Like,
Well, so here's the example that I like to use is just because something is incomprehensible doesn't mean
it's illogical.
it's illogical, right? So like the example that I like to use is if you were to try to picture the ocean, I can understand if you tell me there's 100 billion gallons of water in the ocean. That's a lot. And it's probably true. You can't comprehend what that looks like. Forward, back, left, right, the full depth of it. Like you could never conceptualize what that is. Doesn't mean it's not true.
Well, the
I just,
thing that
there's potentially never going to be a sufficient answer for you to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well, the specific thing I'm struggling to understand is the hypostatic union. So there's the divine nature and the human nature. The divine nature cannot suffer and unalive, but the human nature can. So in my mind, that means only the human side atoned. And people tend to respond to me and say, well, it's the divine nature that acted. And what I don't understand by that is it's the Father. It wasn't Jesus, the divine nature of Jesus, sending the human nature. It was the Father sending the Son. So wouldn't he be the one acting to bring about the atonement?
Yeah, I mean,
That makes sense.
and I would just say, Philippians chapter 2 says he humbled himself to the point of being able to experience death on the cross. Exactly what that means, I don't know. I
So,
know
like,
that
humbled
a
himself
lot of
to his divine
humbled-
nature or to the Father?
yeah, so humbled his full divinity to be able to take on the human nature, step into time, and experience that. Exactly what that looks like, I don't know. I couldn't comfortably articulate exactly what that means.
I don't mean to interrupt, but how can the divine essence humble itself? The person humble itself?
Yeah, how do you step into, if you're the divine, how do you, if you're the divine nature stepping into something, then you would be divine still, right?
Yeah, and again, I'm comfortable saying I don't know.
Just want to make sure you're good. I want
Like,
Let's pile
no,
up.
you guys are good. No, you guys are fine. I don't have a. This is fine.
Yeah,
Because
not to
I don't
mention they're
know.
immutable and unchangeable. So if you
Right,
can humble
so I would say
yourself,
the
then you
divine
can change
nature-
yourself. Yeah.
The nature itself didn't change, is my understanding. And again, I don't have a full understanding, so I'm probably going to butcher this.
No,
But
you're right. Yeah, the hypostatic union
like
would
the
be
nature
necessarily
of
changing.
the divine nature didn't change by taking on a human nature. That didn't change the divine nature. He just added a human nature. Could you say technically that's changed? Potentially.
I would
I-
say so, yes.
This
Wouldn't
gets
that be a
really
change in the divine
really
nature?
metaphysical and philosophical, and I
Yeah.
am
Yeah.
too dumb for that.
The
Yeah, I
only
would
thing I'm
think so.
trying to do here is, after over 30 years of never getting a good answer, I'm just trying to get closer and closer and closer, as close as I can, to grasping it. That's it.
Yeah, I
Sure.
don't think, like,
And-
I personally wouldn't have a problem with people trying to explain things the way that they understand it, because, getting everybody's perspective is a good thing. But what I tend to have an issue with is like, okay, so because I'm Mormon, I'm not Christian because I don't accept the unknowable, right? So like Latter-day Saints, we have an answer to these things, but
Well, not too
that's
much.
wrong.
There's a lot of stuff that's like left unanswered for our theology as well.
oh
So it's
yeah,
not
sure.
fair.
But as far as the nature of the Godhead, we have answers to things that are unknowable for Trinitarians. But that's usually where I run into a problem. So it's like we have to accept the unknown and the mystery of it. But then
We can
again,
also-
but then my solution is wrong because you
Don't-
know it's wrong.
Don't we see God's nature in his creation? So we see, like, we can understand the relationship of a father and a son. That I understand.
For Latter-day Saints,
Yeah.
that's how we
Well, even when
You
I
don't
was
have a problem with
outside of
the nature.
outside of the church, like, this is one of the huge reasons why I just couldn't do Trinitarianism.
Well, it's
Are you
plain
saying-
out not found within the biblical text. I would say that to the idea of creating a square circle, can God create a square circle? Trinitarians will say no, because the attributes of a square cannot be the same attributes as a circle, right? So it is a contradiction within and of itself to have a square circle. But I find it interesting that the attributes of the personage of Jesus Christ, how he holds all of the omni properties while also not holding the omni properties. A contradiction would be P and not P at the same time. So the idea of Jesus Christ, of Jesus Christ not being all knowing, right? His human nature not being all knowing, his human nature not being all powerful, his human nature not being all loving or whatever, right? Those omni properties that the nature of Jesus Christ has. But then he also has the second nature of God, which is that he is all knowing, that he is all powerful, that he is all loving, that he can do all things, right? Those sound very contradictory. And if you were to tell me that that would be P and not P at the same time, which would be in and of itself a contradiction.
My point of
But hold on,
contention is
I
how
would
can you
say
that
it's
God
not
the
a
Son and the
contradiction.
Son-
The
My
human
point-
nature in general, like a human cannot be omnipresent, and a human cannot be all knowing, but God can. And so that while they are two different natures, it's not a contradiction to say that Jesus
Had
was
both
a
of
human.
those natures. Yeah,
But my
that would be a
point of
contradiction.
contention, my point of contention is saying that God the Son atoned, when it seems that just the human nature atoned, because the divine nature cannot experience suffering and unaliving. So,
Well,
how
but
can
if you look
say
at it,
God the Son atoned.
because if you look at it through the lens, so there's a really, really good book by Brant Petrie called Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist. And if you look at it through the understanding of the Passover lamb,
Wait, could you?
he
I don't
had
know.
If
to-
it's not in my canon, I'm not going to accept it. Sorry, bro.
it's just a good book. It's not
Can you put
scripture.
it, can you put it in the chat?
Could you repeat? Yeah, or type it in the chat. I want to write it down.
So Jesus, hold on. I'm sorry. I cannot talk and type at the same time. Jesus is the Passover lamb. He was the perfect sacrifice. So he had to step into creation and to be able to perform that perfect sacrifice. He was just doing what they were doing in the Old Testament, but he was fulfilling it perfectly by living a perfect human sinless life.
And this is
So,
where I get stuck.
But only God can do that. So like when a Unitarian or Jehovah's Witness says that, yeah, he paid for my sins, but he's just a man. Like if he's just a man, he cannot fulfill that.
It was so that's where it's confusing, because if the divine essence couldn't do the sacrifice, it's only the human nature that's doing the sacrifice. So it's not God, the divine essence, doing the sacrifice. It's the human creature nature.
No, but it is still Jesus as God performing that sacrifice. And yes,
But
it
it's
is.
not-
And
not-
again,
not-
hold
but not the
on.
divine
Again,
essence, though.
but again,
It's not
I may
divine,
be
though.
butchering this. This is just so please don't take this as perfect hypostatic union theology.
Yeah.
But my understanding is still that Jesus as God humbled himself, stepped into creation to perform this sacrifice. You cannot kill God, so he had to have that human nature to be able to perform the sacrifice.
Wait a second. You said God stepped into creation, though.
Yes, because
thought-
Jesus is God.
I thought God couldn't. Well, the divine part stepped into creation.
This is the humbling himself to be able to be I can't remember the exact wording in Philippians chapter 2, to be susceptible to death on the cross.
There's two things within Trinitarian thought that would like kind of throw that for like a world with God and never changing, right? If Jesus Christ is God and he received a body, right? That would be a change, but also change and action necessitates time before Jesus Christ incarnated.
Sure,
and it was a
but
time
I'm
after
not
he
arguing
incarnated,
divine
right? God
simplicity.
would have changed. God would not be inside of time. What was that?
I said I'm not trying to argue divine simplicity because I don't fully understand that either, because I would just butcher it. I'm just trying to say he emptied himself. I'd have to look up. This is the LSB translation. He emptied himself by taking the form of a slave, by being made in the likeness of men, being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross.
Yeah,
The divine
I understand.
nature
I understand what I
changed.
understand.
No, I was just trying to read what because I knew I was
Yeah,
butchering it.
I understand what the Bible says, but if we're going to go and say that the divine essence can experience change, and we're going to go and talk about two natures, the divine nature and the human nature, we know that the divine nature cannot experience that change and humble itself, because if it did, it would experience change. It wouldn't be God anymore.
Well,
So
it's still,
Oh, we got Bilal in here.
No. I understand. I understand the answer is that the Bible says that He is God. But if you're going to go and say that God, the divine essence, is immaterial and cannot experience change or interact with matter, you can't go and say that, okay, since the Bible says it, it goes and makes sense that the immaterial can interact with material now. That's where I'm getting confused. Yes, you can go and say that the Bible says this, but if you're going to go and have this framework of the divine essence, this is where I have an issue with. It doesn't make sense to me.
Sure. So here's the best answer that I can give is I'm way too dumb to articulate this. So I'm going to do a crap ton of research on this. I'm going to come back and try again, because if I were to give an answer, it would be a bad one, and I don't want to do that because it's not going to be the right answer.
El, you might wait longer, El.
But I don't understand how no one's able to explain this. for over 30 years, but
There are people
for
that
some reason
can. I'm
the
just not one of
councils,
them.
for some reason, councils of men long ago were able to know it enough to define it for the rest of Christendom forever. All right, I'm just going to sit here till someone explains it to me. Go.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Dude,
Truth says that she has an answer for
that's so
you.
ironic.
Oh, does she?
Yeah,
It's so
I'm
ironic.
looking forward to
Who's
that.
Truth?
Actually, I'm curious to
That's a
know.
category error. It's a definition error. It's the hypostatic union. Sounds like someone qualified to explain it. But
Y'all make us look bad, stuck up and entitled.
Mumu has an
You're
answer.
rude, dude.
Mumu has
I will.
arrived. All right, let's go.
There's a judgy Mormon, man.
I love judgy Mormons.
Just kidding. It was a bit.
All right, erudite Mumu, go.
Wait, what? Oh, wait, was
Oh
it?
yeah, you came up to explain things. Work. Work.
Elle, you probably have to re-explain your question.
What am I explaining?
Oh no, really? Have you been here, or did you just get here?
I heard you talking to Pending for a little bit about the hypostatic union.
Yeah, I'm just trying to better hone in on it, better understand it, because I don't understand. It's basically about the atonement, right? Which is the part of our faith that matters the most, is the atonement of Jesus Christ. And the issue I have with that is saying that God the Son atoned when there's the divine nature and the human nature, but the divine nature cannot suffer and unalive, only the human nature can. So I don't understand how that works.
She's really trying to be a Christian like you, Mumu. She's really trying to make it work.
I've been trying to be a Christian for 30 years.
The best I can think right now, and this is not 100% perfect analogy, of course. Are you aware? Do you know what AWS is, by chance?
Let's go with
Three
no.
letters of awesome.
No.
Let's go with no.
Amazon Web Services.
Okay. Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh, I should know that. My husband worked for Amazon. Oh my gosh.
Do you happen to know what a data center is?
Yeah.
Do I need to get my husband? He would know that.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead.
Okay. Do you know? I guess a hard. I'm gonna try. This is not a better analogy. This is a worse analogy, but
I
do you
understand what you're
like the relation between like software and hardware.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. When you install something on your if you install a program.
I use the Amazon example. I understand what you. I think I understand.
Well, so a data center, you can spin up okay. So I guess if you know, define instance inside of the whole data center, right? So I can spin up a finite virtualized computer.
Yeah.
This virtualized computer does not affect, touch, or do anything with the whole in Amazon services. The data center can go. The instance is wholly reliant on Amazon services. So if Amazon services goes down, your instance no longer exists.
Yeah.
Right. The hypostatic union is this relation between human nature, which is finite, and divinity. You can say that the regions, oh God forgive me, the regions would be like the persons. This is a relational distinction within one region, which is the fullness of Amazon, a Microsoft Windows host or something, right? The host does not add to, it's contained relationally within Amazon Web Services, but it cannot change or interact with Amazon directly. It is fully dependent on Amazon to exist, but Amazon does not need this thing to exist. It can come and go, you can delete the instance, you can remove it, it's finite, it doesn't matter. God is just, now relate that to God, who is infinite. So imagine like Amazon, but infinite. There's no like limitation, right, on data center space and all this other stuff, right? And God can do God things while having this minuscule, finite instance or humanity running alongside it. That would be like the best relational. But the problem is, I guess for Elle, I don't know. She doesn't know Amazon. That may not matter.
Well,
I get what you're saying. This is actually probably
Right,
the
right.
closest. This is probably the best analogy anyone's ever it comes closer than anything I've ever heard. So I appreciate it.
but here you still run into the same issue though.
Yeah.
Amazon's the one not experiencing anything of the instance. It's only the
Amazon
program
region,
that's experiencing.
right? It is relationally existing inside Amazon regions. Let's say region 1 goes down. So like let's say oh man, it's bad. Let's say Washington goes down. Right?
Yeah.
That's not going to affect the Europe region, for instance, right? And of course, isn't 100% obviously there's no way the persons in the Trinity would disappear, right? But each region fully exists as Amazon. If region 1 goes down, the role of that region no longer exists. Anything that subsists within the Washington region no longer exists. So I'll say, I think it's Virginia. Virginia goes down, nothing exists, right? So whatever instance I have is relationally tied to that person or the region.
If I'm understanding it correctly, any instance that is interacting with that program inside of that server, it's indirectly interacting with the server itself.
Yes, but it's not it's not like it's not like the data center is. Virtualization is self-not use do not interact with the actual hardware components of Amazon services, right? Yeah. So the hypostatic union doesn't interact at all with the essence of God. It doesn't interact, it doesn't add, it doesn't touch, it doesn't do anything. But it is a true thing that exists relationally to each other.
Right. It still feels like a separate thing running alongside the system, which sounds like
What happened, Moo? Huh? Said what happened? Oh, I have no idea. I think someone wanted to say something. I probably spent too much time.
So, if I understand it correctly, so like the server in Washington and the server in Europe, those would be the persons, and then but they are all one Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the instance that's happening in the Washington server is only happening to that server, but it's not happening to the Europe one, and so that makes a lot more sense in that regard. But
we would say the difference, though, is that in God, there is no hard distinction like this. So we would say that hypothetically, somehow if you could get each region to act together in the generation of something or an act, that would be closer to God. There is no spatial distinction between the persons of the Trinity. So that's why we would say that, this is why like, it's really hard to use something in time or in space as an accurate analogy, because when it comes to these things, we always end up having a point of space or time as a reference, and that's just not accurate to what God is. This is why if you hear, sometimes if you really straw man certain Catholic thought like Thomism, you could argue it collapses the persons into what almost can sound like oneness without the clarification given by the Thomist position. But then on the flip side, if you push hard and straw man the certain Orthodox perspectives, it can sound tritheistic, which would also be inaccurate without the clarifications. There is, that's why it's very hard to express how this works naturally, and this is where the idea of it being a revelation comes into play, where God is already understood to be an infinite, boundless entity that's expressed itself with these three relations. When I was using the regions as the way to express the differences for the hypostatic union, that would be the way in which you could mentally picture region 1 being Christ, let's say Virginia being Christ, and then running like an instance of, let's say, Windows 11, right? This Windows 11 instance does not affect the Father, who would be region 2. What do you think is Virginia 2? I think there's 2. Anyways.
Right. No, I understand that, but the argument is that the Amazon is the thing that is the one that's able to go and perform the instance, and without it, you can't have the perfect instance. If I'm following correctly, so if the instance only happens through the program that's in the Washington server, which would be the human nature of Christ and not to the divine essence, and so essentially the only reason.
So what we say Christ is giving up. So whenever we sacrifice something, let's say in the Old Testament, right? This might go down to like sacrificial theology, actually. So when we say someone like Isaac was about to be sacrificed, or why something like human, we'll go to human sacrifice in general, right? So let me back up there for a second. So the reason why human sacrifice in general is not an adequate sacrifice is because I am taking something without a loss, right? So for instance,
hold on. I'm going to push back on that, because we do see in the Bible that there is is it Canaanite? No, it's not. I'm trying to remember who it is.
Sorry, I meant from a religion. I meant from what we would consider to be like the proper form, not the Canaanite perspective.
Right, but we do see that when a human sacrifice is done, it is effective.
Yeah, it can be effective to, like, let's say when the son sacrificed upon the wall. But we wouldn't say that this is like emblematic of God. But this goes like when we're talking about like other gods, this goes into like an expect specifically when it comes to like the God of Abraham. The reason why it's always an animal is that you have to lose something to show genuine desire, right? And this is like this is temporary, right? So we would say that the reason why you wouldn't sacrifice a human to God is, well, we believe that life is owned by God. Like the concept of what life is for God alone, and you would be sacrificing something unclean, right? Because if I capture like a rival, a nation, and I sacrifice this person to God, I'm giving him corrupted blood, basically, right? If I give an animal that's pure, this animal could have, like, again, like they sacrificed their best, right? So it would be, the best lamb, the fattiest lamb, it could.
Yeah, they're losing sustenance that lamb could give.
Sorry, I got a call there.
You're fine. So they're losing sustenance and they're giving it away freely.
Yes, exactly, right? So this is why we would say that this is why the sacrifices for Yahweh were specifically a loss for the individual and not necessarily one of glory. So we would say that, like you mentioned with like the Canaanites, right, or whoever it would be, they would sacrifice people as a proclamation of glory, not a way to cover its own for sins. So the loss is on the individual, not the. So this is why something like Abraham's sacrifice with Isaac, if he went through with it, would have actually been a severe loss, right? It wasn't for glory, right? Like it wasn't like the king of Moab where he sacrificed his son upon the wall, who did it for anger, vengeance, and a desire to win. Right, and of course you could argue this is like us theologically reading this into the text, right?
So it's the intention, is what
it's
you're
the intention of the sacrifice, yes.
Yeah, okay. Gotcha.
So when Christ incarnates, he doesn't have to. The loss might be temporary in the same way that I temporarily lose like the best of my flock in the moment, right? This is a temporal action, but Christ not only.
But what is he losing though?
What is he losing?
Yeah, if he's doing a sacrifice, there has to be something he's losing then. And what is
So
that?
the Father. So it'd be the, you could argue it'd be like the temporarily it'd be the fullness of glory without a need to do so. So
How does that work?
Well, because Christ has no reason. If I'm fully transcendent and divine, I have zero reason to enter into creation, incarnate, allow my body to be abused just for the redemption of creation that went against me anyways. That would be the loss. We would say the emptying of Christ.
Do you believe Christ is subordinate to the Father? I wasn't
we
here.
can
I
use
wasn't up
that.
for I'm not trying to derail you, but I wasn't up here
No,
for
you're
the whole
fine.
Amazon thing, so I just wanted to clarify that.
We would say that like functional in role, sure, but he's still the fullness of divinity. So when he acts, it's the fullness of God, right? But
I still don't understand how he is losing that fullness though.
he's not like it's not like a permanent loss. We wouldn't say that like sacrifice has to be a permanent.
But I don't
loss.
think he's losing it at all. Even after the atonement, I don't think he would. Why would he be losing it when his essence hasn't changed? He would still have that fullness.
Because it's for us to change, not for him. He has nothing to gain from this.
So fullness doesn't mean the divine essence. It means us included.
What do you mean? I'm sorry. Repeat that.
Well, I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. I guess I don't understand what the fullness is of God, the divine, or whatever.
The divine. We don't believe that Christ loses his divinity. When we say that he empties himself, it's a humbling to enter into creation and then enact like the perfect sacrifice for man.
Right.
We
But
don't
what is
believe
he
that
emptying?
sacrifices have to be,
What is he emptying though?
his glory to enter into humanity. You could say the glory is a part of the essence, but I mean, just because
So it's an attribute. It's an attribute of the essence.
I'd be careful with, I'd be careful saying that, but sure, just for the sake of this, sure.
What exactly is stepping into humanity?
It's the relational, it's the relationship that the divine enters. Well, sorry, the human nature enters into with the divine nature. So in the same way that Moses has to enter into a relationship with God to even speak on his behalf, but he's never the fullness of God. So where it would be person to person relation, it's nature to nature, where the fullness of Christ can incarnate in full as a human without it being like a human giving up their consciousness to God, right? Because Moses is still Moses, right?
So the human nature of Jesus Christ gave themselves to the divine.
Well, we would say the nature is relationally, it enters relationally, it enters into a relationship with divinity, and then Christ, with that merger, comes out of that incarnate. It's not a, I'll be careful how you say merger, but
All right. No, I understand that's a relational a connection with the hypostatic union, but it still is like I'm still trying to understand the person Jesus emptying himself of glory
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, then there is something that is interacting with material at that point.
Yeah, that's the incarnation. So it'd be the
Right.
so we believe that Christ has, but the materiality is only out of necessity to human nature. So human nature by necessity requires a human body, human soul, human mind, right? All that good stuff. That's just a necessity. In the same way that like Amazon's, in the same way that like a Windows host would require, some type of, even if it's virtualized, some type of like partition. It can be, has to be, obviously a Windows installation image, has to have all the software components to necessarily allow the reading of inputs and all these other things, right? To even simulate something like that.
Right, but the server itself is not doing anything. It's
No, the
it's
server
the
is. It's
no
the reason
no.
why
If
that-
we're the server is, yes, it's there, but it's not doing anything. The thing that's doing everything is the virtual instance that is having all the actions happening upon it.
Yeah,
That's
but
the thing that's doing everything.
But it's still Amazon, right? Like this virtual instance wouldn't exist relationally if Amazon didn't exist. So Amazon is truly doing this thing. It's just not the fullness of the data center, right? It'd be because the data center is massive. It's huge, right? I think that a finite relation to, let's say, like a 30 gigabyte hard drive instance, right, on an Amazon host, that's nothing, right? When we're talking now, we're talking about with God, we're talking about something that's not bound by space, that's not bound by time.
Yeah, no,
That is
I understand
truly
that.
infinite, right?
What I'm trying to understand is that when you're saying that Jesus emptied himself, or that he lost the glory in that instance, it's not the server that's losing that. It's the virtual console that's losing it, and so it's not actually the divine that is actually required for it. And from my understanding, it's the divine
It's a
essence.
necessity, right? That's just the foundation of it.
So it's just there to be able to create the
even be.
opportunity, pretty much.
Well, it has to be there to even allow the thing to exist in the first place, right?
Right, but it's not. It's purely there to go and so that this thing can happen. That's all it is.
Yeah, of course. But it's
Okay.
truly being acted upon by the region, right? So Virginia 1 is truly. Sorry.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I just wanted
you're
to
fine.
say something. It just sounds like to me like it makes the suffering detachable. So if an instance crashes, Amazon is fine. Nothing actually happens to Amazon itself. So if we apply that to Christ, Jesus suffers, but God remains untouched by the suffering, by the atonement. And that's where my issue lies, is how do we say that God the Son atoned when it seems like the God part, the divine part, is untouched by the atonement?
Well, I mean, there's going to be a point in which the divine is untouchable, right? So, for instance, the spirit body of Christ doesn't have nerve endings, right? So, if we're going to go with an LDS perspective, right? So, we would say that the physicality by necessity of Christ suffered. So, but he truly suffered. Doesn't mean that, like, just because the spirit body didn't bleed. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we say that word on here? I'm sorry, guys. You know me drop coal? I don't know if was that a bad word?
I never know anymore.
Maybe, I don't
Can't keep
know.
up.
It's
Oh,
tough.
okay.
But in our
It's a medical
theology,
term. But
in our theology,
yeah, I
his
don't know.
spirit and his flesh suffered. They both suffered.
Yeah. So we would say that, but you wouldn't say that. I don't know. I don't know how you guys. I'm not sure if you guys even go into this type of metaphysics, but would you say that like the suffering like physically occurred in Christ, like when it came to a spirit body?
I would consider it like the psychological suffering that you have. So like when you have consciousness and you go and have issues in your head and stuff like that, you have pain inside your heart. That's not the same as physical. A spiritual being can go and have that pain and heart and hurt. So that's how I would go and reconcile that.
Yeah, we would say something like that too, where we would have like the for lack of a better term right now, just not to get too much into it, but there's like a spiritual intellect, right? So your mind can process things physically, right? But you have a part of you that there is ways or non-physical maladies to inflict you, right? So this would be like demonic inflictions, whatever it might be, right? These can be physical, but they're not necessarily rooted physicality. But they're not rooted in physicality compared to us, right? In all instances.
Well, we have to remember, in our theology, we are the same kind as God.
Sure.
So we are spirits in a body, just as Christ was a spirit in a body. So we are the same in that respect.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess like the question becomes, does the because I don't know exactly where the limits are. I'm sure obviously it's hard to explain a lot of these things, but like the intellect or like the intelligence of Christ, did that suffer anything when he was physically on earth?
Probably.
I think he suffered in every way imaginable.
Yeah.
Every way possible. Yeah.
But does the intellect suffer? Is it spatially located when he's incarnate?
Hurt emotionally and stuff like that. Is that the intellect or is that the nature, or like that'd be the question. When you're hurt, is that attacking your intellect and pain to your intellect, or is that something else?
I think for us, because we're tripartite. Well, some of us are tripartite. So some of us would say that it can be a non-physical thing that's occurring, or it can be a physical thing. There's just not a way to always know 100%. And sometimes physical alleviation can lead to spiritual alleviation. I don't want to say like, I'm not saying all things. Okay, there's an insane amount of nuance to a lot of this conversation. But so we would say that when Christ, I guess going back to hypostatic union, Christ truly incarnates and suffers. Like that's just without a question. But just because the divine essence didn't physically feel, like let's say like Saint Longinus' spear in his side, right? I don't think that would. We don't think that that's not necessary for it to happen, right?
But your answer would be that intellect doesn't feel pain, and that the divine essence would be essentially the intellect of God, right?
Kind of.
This is just I'm not saying that this is 100%, but I'm just trying to go and get an understanding of like what you would believe.
The essence is just what God is. The exact.
Right, but it can experience pain.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't say that physical pain doesn't.
And so, in the same sense, that you would go and say like, if the essence is intellect, it doesn't experience pain in your understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean, if there are accidents related to it, so like the physicality of like so for us we are by definition, physical, right? We have a physical necessity. We're going to physically feel something, right? But we don't think that like demons can feel nerve ending-esque pain as we would, right? Because they don't have the physical form. In our
pain is
perception.
not physical.
So that's where this is where it's getting confusing to me then, because if you're going to go and say that the hypostatic union has them both to suffer, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because the only way that I can go and really pull from that is that only the human nature is experiencing that suffering and not
that God
100% God.
Yeah, and we would say that like God by nature actually has zero reason to even undergo this.
Right.
So even to have something relationally experienced in that way is unnecessary from the perspective of God, but he does it because he's willing to do that because the hypostatic union is a permanent effect.
No, yeah, I understand. I understand the argument, but why does it have to be a hypostatic union at that point? Why can't it just be that hey, this corporeal incarnate person is a worthy sacrifice?
Because that is because creation can't save creation. So only divinity can enter and heal humanity.
That doesn't make any sense.
Was Jesus Christ? Hold on. Was Jesus Christ's nature created? His human nature, was that created?
These are natural created effects, but this is relationally distinct within the person of Christ. This is why we disagree with like metaphysics.
I get that. So the human nature of God, or of Jesus Christ, that was the thing that unalived on the cross. Did the uncreated nature of Yahweh in the form of Jesus Christ unalive on the cross or no? Because at that point, if it was not the divine nature that unalived on the cross, then it was a created nature that did die for creation.
Yeah, but the person of Christ fulfills the uncreated element of that union. So that's where.
How would the person of Christ fulfill the uncreated, whatever?
The uncreated element of the union is because Christ Himself is fully divine. When He, by necessity of human nature, takes on a human form, that's just a necessity of nature. That's not a necessity of God. So when He enters into creation,
but he's not taking on the form of human because I wish to go and clarify. Does the hypostatic union have two minds, or is it just one mind?
The hypostatic union has two minds. We would say it's two minds. Yeah.
So the divine is not entering into it and occupying it. Then it's the human nature that's doing it and is submitting to the divine essence, the God. And so we wouldn't say that the hypostatic union is the one suffering on the cross. We would say it's only the human nature that's on the cross.
Well, no, because again, it'd be like saying that my virtual server with my Windows with my Windows OS doesn't actually exist on Amazon. It exists. It truly exists because Amazon exists, and Amazon is the one that's allowing this thing to occur, right?
Right, but that would be with every instance, though, too. So everything in the creation would also have that union and relation with God as well.
I mean, hypothetically, God could, hypothetically, sure, but we wouldn't say that God would incarnate as an animal. We wouldn't say that at all.
When you say Amazon, do you mean God the Father? When you say Amazon?
No. It's God in totality. It would just be
it's the essence.
It'd be the essence of God. Yeah,
the Holy Spirit. It's an example. I wouldn't say it's like a perfect analogy, but it's pretty clear.
We don't have a
W partialism, bro.
Yeah, exactly. This is where I was going to say. This is where it becomes dicey.
Well, no. When it comes down to it, they're all running.
That is why it is deemed as like.
You're breaking out.
Oh, he's breaking out.
So it works for me because if they're all working on the same cloud, like if they're all like pretty much working on the same type of storage, it's not an issue because they're all one essence. They all have the same storage and they all would work in unison, but they're just and have different roles for different instances.
I'm with you on that analogy, but it would be like the hypostatic union would only be one server.
Yeah, it'd be the Son.
But then you would have the issue of him being different than the Father and the Spirit.
No, we wouldn't.
I don't.
roles-
So
roles
the
can be
manifesting. Sure, roles can be different, but
with this analogy, I'm not like I'm not trying to go and put like earthly things into it. I'm
Yeah.
taking away features of a server
Sure.
that would stop it from the analogy not working.
sure,
Well,
but
things
the
on the
only
partials
server.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
this
is
would
so
easily fall to
partials
partials.
yeah.
If you're careful.
So, but if
Yeah.
the only thing that can interact with theoretically the physical, taking on a physical nature, and that being Jesus Christ, that's one server, not
Father incarnates.
in this
Yeah.
analogy. So it still means that they're not the same nature, in my opinion.
I would disagree with you, Cammy. I follow what Moon
No,
was saying.
I get the analogy with the servers. They're all servers. Got it. They all have the same function. They all can operate the same way, but you cannot, I don't know if you guys were talking about the hardware analogy or whatever before, but the physicality of Jesus Christ in the hypostatic union, that's only one of the persons. And so he would have to be distinct and different from the Father and the Spirit. So that still doesn't make sense to me, because you can't say that they are unified in wills, purpose, essence, nature, and only one of them having the physicality of a resurrected body.
And how would a single
That's why
server
we
be a
said
model
that-
for the hypostatic union? Just one server. How would a single server be a model for the hypostatic union?
Well, because I was saying that, let's say region 1, which is Virginia, it spins up like a Windows, a perfect Windows OS, right? It's the most perfect one, and because even someone like Saint Thomas, I say Saint Thomas Aquinas, he's not a saint for me, but Thomas Aquinas, he himself, no one disagrees that the Father could hypothetically incarnate. That's not an issue. It's whether or not that's how the revelation was done, and that's just not how it was
Right,
done.
but for Latter-day Saints, it is a
of course,
problem
you guys would
because
say
if we believe the Godhead, the Father also has a body, a flesh and bone, that's a huge problem for Trinitarians. That's the main distinction between the two.
Yeah, that's why we say the roles are unique and distinct to the persons. So for instance, technically, hypothetically, the server in Europe could spin up a Windows 11 host, no problem, right? But we would just say that it just doesn't do that, right?
Do you believe in subordination?
We would be careful with that language, so it depends on you cash it out, sure.
But I mean,
it really depends on you cash it out.
Yeah, but that would be the server in Virginia getting permission from the server in Europe to become incarnate.
Yeah, that was my question before.
Oh, you're saying like that? Well, at that point, then it would just be a different. At that point, it would just be the sun analogy. I mean, the heat and the light radiate off the sun, the core of the body. I mean, that would just be.
I'd stick with your server analogy.
The server analogy is I don't know. The server analogy doesn't, because you could technically have so for instance, Virginia 1 is usually the main server anyways. So that would still be where a lot of our main components are, right? So if you want to make Virginia 1 God the Father in this hypothetical, sure. What's analogy? I mean, it's analogy God the Father is Virginia because that's the main one, because we believe the Father is the sole arche of the God of the Godhead. That's yeah, sure, right. And then sure, you can have components and roles in other regions, right? So let's say the Virginia 2 has a role that, well, technically Virginia 1 can do. For the function of the role, Virginia 2 does it, not Virginia 1. It's not that Virginia 1 cannot do it. That's just the way that it's set up, or the apparent necessity of the, we would say, obviously, if you're in a development world, it would be just for the load, right? Or there's a different reason why you have different hosts do different things. But anyways,
it can work.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but I still would probably disagree, just because the Trinity, it is absolutely necessary for the Father not to have a physical body.
Well, to be fair, he's using this analogy to explain the hypostases or the hypostatic union.
No,
But
my issue with that is one system would dominate. If one system, so if it's the hypostatic union, you have the unlimited divine, and then the other one is limited, and it seems to me that the limited one would be overridden instantly by the superior one.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
Can it be more like a NAS drive, like a NAS backup drive, with them being hard drives in one body?
I mean, you could, if you want to do like a dual boot. I don't know. That would be, I don't know, maybe.
Dude, I am totally running this by my husband tonight, because he's the tech guy. He does code and coding and all that.
I view it as like a virtual console running inside of a console. That's how I'm viewing it.
Yeah, the ironic part is that I don't want to say God is virtual, but it's funny because like in this analogy, God is the hardware, which the physical components, like the actual data servers, and then the humanity is the virtual. Yeah, so, yeah, exactly right. So that's just kind of
that's funny.
Yeah, so that's just how it goes. But,
I think we're running into simulation theory right now.
hey, true though.
I appreciate this though because this is actually the closest. I'm getting closer, So I appreciate the analogy.
Well,
Yeah,
you're not. These models are not like you're not going to convert because you understand hypostatic.
Oh, no.
Yeah, right. That's not a.
Yeah,
like,
I
that's
don't
not the.
understand it.
Yeah. Like we would say that like the God reveals Himself, you've accepted revelation, and the church has just provided a language model by which you can express what you're interacting with. But that's kind of it. We wouldn't say that. Like for instance, right? Like I think you would say I think that you accept the Book of Mormon, you accept the LDS claims, and everything else that's explanatory just is like icing on the cake. Like it's like, okay,
Yeah.
so we are internal intelligences, and we had a spirit body at one point, or we still do, but now we have we in addition having a physical one, right? These would just be like ways to help root your understanding of the different aspects of your faith, right? So
I mean, I agree. I would agree to that.